a dealership, get some sort of Corolla, maybe for $7,000, the base model. And it would last you a very, very long time, maybe 400,000 miles. A lot of Toyotas actually made it to 400,000 miles. And they lasted that long because they were built cheaply, which means they were built simply. They just lasted forever, they didn't have a lot of moving parts, and they just worked. And then when that thing cacked out, you could buy a very decent used Corolla. Well, I don't, because I was born in 2005 and purchased my first car a few years ago. But anyway, supposedly you could do that. My parents did that, and a few other of my families did that. If you haven't noticed, I'm very sick. Very sick. I can't hear it in one of my ears. So I might be speaking, like, Spanish or something, and I would have no idea. So, yes, I am sick. I have a very nasally voice. So, please try to ignore that, please. But nowadays, if you walk into a dealership and try and find something reliable, like a Civic or a Corolla, it's not going to last nearly as long. Now, they've always been kind of conservative with how long will these last, where they say what the life expectancy is. But the life expectancy for a 2024 Honda Civic is only 200,000 miles. Now, like I said, I'm sick. At 200,000 miles, you may say, well, that's a lot. That's a lot of miles. But actually, no, it isn't. I think we've all had that one car in our respective families that has just lasted so long. Our Honda Odyssey lasted 360,000 miles. My dad's Avalon lasted 425,000 miles before we ended up selling. We didn't junk it, we sold it. It was a 2008, drove it to work every day, drove it everywhere. That's just how it worked, right? And so 200,000 miles it's a decent amount to get out of a car, a fair amount to get out of a car even, but I still don't think it competes with those older vehicles. And the more and more I dig into this, the more and more I get angry about it. So let's look at some of the ways that these car companies they really are making modern cars much worse than their older alternatives, right? And one of the biggest issues is the interiors. The interior is where you spend your time driving the car. And nowadays, the interior of a car is way too fancy and crazy for anyone to even be able to work it out. First of all, you have a gigantic touchscreen that is directly in the way of your line of sight, in your line of vision, and honestly, you're going to use it maybe once or twice. You shouldn't be using that much anymore, all that much, while you're driving anyways, and when you're not driving, guess what? You can be on your phone. I'm sure you have one. In fact, I know you have one. If you're watching a YouTube video, you're probably watching it directly on your phone. Unless you're a weirdo who has a computer or something. Ugh, weirdos. Anyway, yeah, these interiors are just radical. You can see here, weird styling, except, if weird styling can be weird, except it's made out of good things, right? Like, I remember Bentley and Audi made a few styling interior choices, but they were made at a high quality. BMW is a car company that made really weird styling choices, but it wasn't high quality, right? So they suffered from that for a while in the luxury segment. But yeah, they're making these radical styling changes, like a Univent with red accenting and a red leather interior. And then it's just all made out of crap. It's made out of pleather, plastic, it snaps off. And also, all this technology that you see here, your grandfather was right. The more there is on a car, the more there is to replace. I mean, even to replace a head unit in one of these guys. The head unit's expectancy from Toyota is about 10 years. I don't know about you. My car, the car that I drive every single day, is a 2012 Toyota Prius. It is a 12-year-old car, which means that my 2012 Toyota Prius should need a head stereo unit. Now, in my Prius, I could just, bip it out like usual, but you may notice this thing sticks up. It's not your usual DIN or double DIN standard even. It's weird, which means you have to do all of this just to swap it out. Not to mention dealing with the software and programming and everything. So they're making it harder for you to repair your own car. I mean, look at that. That looks like an absolute disaster. Remember the days when people could actually steal your head unit? I don't, like I said, I was born in 2005, but they would just, apparently it was a thing. My parents apparently got a head unit stolen in, like, the 80s, where they would just break in your car and steal your head unit, and, if it was a nice one, Pioneer or something. Nowadays, you have to do all this to get it out. That's why this doesn't exist anymore. It's not because people don't want your head stereo units. I'm sure they would love to walk around with a touchscreen. It's just, they're usually stock-fitted, specialty. Like, that ain't fitting on that, and yet they're in the same class, same segment, and from similar car companies, right? So that's why that doesn't really happen, because it's impossible. And like I said, the dealership is going to charge out the ass for this. And if you find any repair shop that is actually willing to do this, it's going to cost you a whole hell of a lot. Because, I mean, look at this. It looks like an absolute nightmare. There are some things that I do on my car. I changed the oil, but I'm not a mechanic by any means. But I changed the oil on my car. I changed the cabin air filter in my car. Hell, I even took my back seats out to check the fan in my hybrid system to see if it was clogged. With the help of my dad's tools, because he actually is a mechanic. Anyway, yeah, I'm not a very car person, but some things I will do on my car. This is a no. This is an instant no. If my head unit needs replaced, I'm either going to take it to Best Buy and say, just put some JBL thing. I don't need a touchscreen. Just put a radio that plays music in there that I can plug my phone into it through my little aux adapter. Yes, I still use aux. Rather than doing this, and also replacement parts. Things are made out of crap. Denkpods, who is a real mechanic, well, not a... I would describe him as a real mechanic. I mean, come on, the classifications for words can't be that strict, right? I would say he's a real mechanic. And one of his main talking points is that everyone makes everything out of shit. This piano black plastic creaks and cracks easily. Toyota probably charges $52 for a replacement. For not even the electronics, just this plastic, shiny bit plastic right there. It's absolutely ridiculous, right? So that's the first way that they're doing, especially in the interiors, is just making it worse and filled with plastic crap. Another thing that they're doing is swapping decent things for this. Like, now they're doing what I like to call hybrid shifters. We have a shifter, and then your park and everything else is over here. Very weird system. It's neat, it's cool, but it's very weird. I'm not going to talk about too much of this, because I'm not going to talk about this too much. Again, I'm sick, because my car has a similar thing to that, right? So, another thing that they do is make stuff that we don't want. Okay. I'm guessing 100 people watching this. That's my average views. Believe it or not, I know. I'm excited, too. Would you buy one of these? Let's say you live on a ranch in Kentucky. Sure, why not Kentucky? And you need to, I don't know, drive, period, at all, carry anything, do anything real. Would you rather have any of these cars here, Ford F-150 Lightning or GMC Sierra, compared to their gas things? No! These cars are super expensive. I believe the Ford F-150 Lightning starts at $80,000. $80,000. Trucks are expensive as they are, much less paying that much for a hideous, unreliable American truck. Now, again, American trucks are bad, just the Toyota Hilux. Now, I will say the Toyota trucks suck. I'm definitely making a video on that. They suck real bad. But yeah, even the American ones aren't great anymore, and especially their EV things. Like, Stellantis can't figure regular gas combustion engine cars out, and then they come out with one of these. Also, just asking for a friend here, why does every single car need to have some, like, weird integrated knob there? I think it's because, they want to make people feel that they bought an EV, that, it's not an EV and that they're actually worth something by, ooh, you get to turn a little fiddly knob. I mean, I'm sure it works with the people that would consider spending $80,000 on an EV show truck, but yeah, if I bought one of these, which I can't afford comfortably, and I drove it to Oregon, all my neighbors would laugh at me and call me an asshole, because they're just, A, they're so pretentious, and B, they're too expensive to be, some trucks, like a Ford Ranger, which is essentially just a Mazda, or a Toyota, you just drive it. You just put your foot in the gas, you steer, you don't hit anyone else, congratulations, you're driving. These, if I drove this, I would have a panic attack. I take pretty good, I would like to say decent care of my Prius. That doesn't mean that I have my accidents. Yesterday, I accidentally curved my wheels going down a stiff hill, and I'm still mad about that. But, yeah, nightmare to drive. They're also just making the interior hideous now, like I said, with the little fiddly knobs and the cloth everywhere. All recycled, of course, and the stupid screens. Just terrible. They're just making cars that we don't want. And like I said, most of these are EVs. A lot of the cars on the worst selling cars in the market are EVs because, quite frankly, people can't afford them. And they take away from that simplicity of, the average Toyota that would last forever if you just took care of it and did some oil changes and maybe a cabin air filter, although that's not really necessary, right? Another thing that they're doing is swapping out the cars that we do like for ones that we really, really don't. Like the Highlander. This was by far the people in my comment section's favorite generation of Highlander. I kind of agree with them, but remember, this isn't, this is more objective. This one's more, well, objective, but I just picked the one that I did because it's more modern, and people would get angry at me like, is this supposed to be a serious recommendation? A point from the fact that everyone thinks that apparently I'm a fetus. But, yeah, so, that. And they're swapping these good, reliable four-wheel drive cars for these stinking, stupid all-wheel drive cars. Now, I'm not saying that the Highlander is bad. The Highlander, if it gets that steering wheel, I'm smacking my head up against a wall. But, the worst steering wheel in history. But these cars, they're just so bubbly, and you don't really get that much extra space. Now, I went on carsize.com to kind of show you the difference. Believe it or not, they only have the 4th and 3rd generation Highlander, so I did this with the RAV4, not just because it was more dramatic. And you can see this is a 2012 Toyota RAV4 against a 2024 RAV4, a 12-year difference. And boy, look at that. Look at how long that new Highlander is. Even with the spare tire, the big chunky bumper, and that oddball 1000 styling. And yet, the new one is still huge. These, I would argue that if the size classes, everything, stayed the same from the time when this guy was around, this wouldn't even be considered a compact SUV anymore. It's just a family car, you know. You know, it's just really sad. Like, actually really sad and disappointing to see that they're replacing these really good, really reliable cars with these big, huge hunky ones. And the worst part about it is you don't even get that much interior storage space. I think the difference between these, I think it's vast and different just because of how this thing was shaped. But I know in the Highlander, it was very, very similar. Like, a matter of inches was the difference. Now, the new one was bigger, but like I said, inches is what we're talking about here. Not anything super drastic. I think one of them wasn't even an inch more of cargo room to square inch. You know. Anyway, the next thing that we're moving on to is a hate of a specific thing of mine, but this is them swapping good things about, like, keeping the good cars, but then swapping little bits out of them to make it cheaper. This is probably, I'm going to make a video on this, probably my most hated thing of 2024, and it's these rear captain's chairs. They're awful. I grew up in a 2010 Honda Odyssey, and there were 3 seats in the second row, and they were all comfortable. They all had armrests. You sat in them just fine. It was fine. Leather was great. Me and my 2 sisters, we were just fine in that car. And yet these captain's chairs, first of all, they're covered with technology. They recline, they're heated, they're cooled. I have spilled in that car, because remember, I grew up in this car. Every single time, my sister was done with soccer, she put her cleats all over the floor. I've spilled at least 4 Baja Blasts down the back of this specific seat, except ours was cloth, so it didn't come out, unfortunately. They weren't too happy about that one. But, driving this car, and those seats could take some serious abuse. They were just foam and fabric, and if you didn't care about the way that they looked, they would last forever. These stupid seats, all the little electronics, one Baja Blast, and if you turn that heated seat on, granted, if you're in a Kia, it's already going to do that Baja Blast or not, in the car or not, but yeah, they're just so, awfully complicated. I still believe that if I went back to whoever owns the minivan, we sold it, I have no idea, whoever owns that junked minivan that broke down, I'm sure that they will still get more miles out of it with its last time I checked, 360,000 miles than a new person would get out of like a brand new Lincoln Nautilus or a brand new Kia Carnival. Something crappy like that, and it's not just because the seats, like I said, reliability, we talked about this before, simplicity, making cars that we don't want. I just really don't like rear captain's chairs, that's all. Another thing, the automatic transmissions. They're swapping a lot of notoriously automatic transmission cars, like the Toyota RAV4, for CVTs. Oh, CVTs. CVTs can be really, really good, depending on the manufacturer. If it's a Nissan, enough said, it's a Nissan. If it's a Toyota, buy it. If it's a Honda, buy it. If it's a Subaru, second guess yourself a little bit there. They're better now. Subarus are definitely better now than when they first started. Like, I would definitely not take, like, a anything after 2014 with a Forester with CVT in it, just get rid of it. So CVTs really depend on the manufacturer, but for the most part, they are worse than automatic transmissions, right? Especially in Kias and Hyundais, these cars that people don't really care about. Another thing that they're doing is swapping our cheap cars. This is something I'm mad about. I love our cheap cars. I grew up with actually I didn't. I grew up in Oregon with big, heavy off-roaders and then didn't really like them all that much. But I have always loved cheap cars. And there's something about them that's just so charming. You notice that it doesn't care if you hate it. because it's just there to get the job done and then get scrapped. Well, they're swapping these really reliable, what I would describe as cute cars, for these wannabe SUVs, like the Hyundai Venue. It's high off the ground, I guess, and has all-wheel drive, air quotes, all-wheel drive, technically. It's a very weak system, and it's also awful. I just don't know how this happened, how people are willing to give up their small, cute cars for wannabe SUVs. Younger generations, but, still, of which I am a part of. I just started, driving, 3 years ago, so, So, yeah, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you guys very soon. And I hope I get better.